Today, we're diving into a historical puzzle that's been hiding in plain sight for centuries, on old coins, ancient manuscripts, and even early Bibles. It's a mystery that starts with a single letter but could, if you believe some theories, rewrite 1,000 years of history. Okay, take a close look at this. You see the date J775. Now, your brain probably jumps to reading it as 1775. But what if that J isn't a 1 at all? What if the date is exactly what it says it is, the year 775? This simple question is the key to our entire explainer. So, what is the deal with this mysterious J date? Well, I can tell you it wasn't a typo or some kind of printing error. It was actually a common historical convention, and it has a really fascinating story behind it. And you'll find these unusual dates on all sorts of historical items once you know what to look for. We're talking old coins, manuscripts that were carefully copied by scribes, and even some of the very first printed Bibles. They all sometimes show dates that look like J775 or I522. So, was this just a forgotten quirk of typography? Or, as some people claim, is it a clue that points to something much, much bigger? A conspiracy to rewrite our timeline itself? And this is where we get into a pretty radical theory. It suggests this isn't about style at all, but about hiding a massive change to our history books. You might have heard it called the phantom time hypothesis or the missing millennium theory. The people who follow this theory argue that the date J775 should be read completely literally, as the year 775. They claim that somewhere along the line, a full 1,000 years of history were just fabricated and inserted into our calendar. It's a pretty wild thought, isn't it? Could powerful figures in the past have just invented 1,000 years? It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but hey, let's treat it like a real investigation and actually look at the evidence. All right, time to put on our detective hats. To solve this mystery, we can't just look at one clue in isolation. We need to crack the code by examining all the evidence together. You see, the secret to understanding J775 isn't to stare at it all by itself. The real answer appears when you start comparing it with other examples from the same time period. Consistency, as they say, is key. And this right here is where the whole theory really starts to fall apart. Look at a date like J77J from the year 1771. Now, if the first J means we're supposed to ignore a phantom 1, then what on earth does the final J mean? It can't be both a secret marker and the numeral 1. It has to be one or the other. So, the crucial point is, once we see examples like J77J, the pattern becomes crystal clear. The J is being used consistently as a substitute for the number 1, at the beginning and at the end of the date. This isn't a conspiracy, it's a code, and we've just cracked it. So, if it's not some grand conspiracy, then what is it? Well, the real historical reason is a fascinating story about how our own language, our own alphabet, actually evolved. Here's the truth. For most of Western history, the letters I and J weren't even separate letters. They both evolved from the same single Latin character. For hundreds of years, scribes and printers just used them interchangeably. A lot of the time, they'd use the more elaborate J shape for a little stylistic flair. The strict separation that we know today, that's actually a relatively modern invention. So this whole big mystery, it really just boils down to a quirk of typography, like a little fossil from a time when our alphabet was still settling down. It was never about manipulating history. But wait, that brings up another question, doesn't it? Even if I and J are the same as 1, why use a letter at all? Why not just write the number 1? And this is where the story takes one last, really fascinating turn. You see, the final piece of the puzzle goes beyond typography and into the world of faith and symbolism. There's a much deeper meaning at play here. It turns out the letter I, or its variant J, was often used as a stand-in for a very important name, Iesus, which is the Latin name for Jesus. In a deeply religious society, it was a common and instantly recognizable abbreviation. And why would the symbol for Jesus also stand for the number 1? Well, because in Christian theology, Jesus is the 1. The number wasn't just a digit, it was a little statement of faith, embedded right into the date itself. So let's put it all together. J and I were the same letter, and they were used in place of the numeral 1. This was often a symbolic reference to Jesus, the 1. So a date like J775 wasn't just 1775, it was in the year of our Lord, the 1, 775. And that's really why this all matters.
It shows that without understanding the historical, the typographical, and the cultural context, a simple date can easily be mistaken for a grand conspiracy. The past speaks in its own language, and we just have to learn how to listen.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secrets, what other stories are encoded in the world all around us, just waiting for us to look a little closer and ask the right questions?